All right. So our speaker tonight is Jack Molisani, and actually nobody gave me anything to say about Jack, so I'll just have to ad lib it here and let him he'll fill in the real details when he gets up. But Jack has been the principal of ProSpring for a long time. He has been running the LavaCon conference for, I don't know, since its inception. I guess he started it, and he's been a STC volunteer of many different sorts for a long time. And so I'll just turn it over to Jack and let him talk.
Okay, thank you, Richard. So I'm going to share my screen. Yes, share. And now everyone should be able to see the presentation. Is this true?
I can see it.
Okay, good. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm an STC fellow. I'm a member of the STC nominating committee whose mission is to find candidates who want to run for society level office. So now that I know you're here, beware, I may ping you. I'm the president of ProSpring Technical Staffing, an agency that specializes in content professionals. And I also wrote Be the Captain of Your Career, which hit #5 on Amazon's career and resume bestseller list a few years ago. So I've been a recruiter for about 25 years. I've been a hiring manager and I've been a tech writer. So I've been on both sides of the hiring desk. And what I'm going to show you tonight is just things I've learned along the way. Oh, yeah, and I produced LavaCon. And this is our 19th anniversary. Next year will be our 20th. So we started in Hawaii. That's why it's called LavaCon. All right, some ground rules and warnings. Again, this is group participation, not me talking at you for 45 minutes. Keep in mind, anything I tell you tonight is just my opinion. What works for Nikki may not work for Patrick, and vice versa. So try it for yourself. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it out the window. Finally, I've heard it said that some cultures believe to attempt perfection is to anger the gods. So artists in those cultures purposely leave a little imperfection in any art they create. So if you find any typos in here tonight, just not angering the gods. All right, so we're going to talk about applicant tracking systems. First of all, what is an applicant tracking system? How to avoid applicant tracking systems, and if you absolutely must, how to work with an ATS. All right. Applicant tracking systems started as a way to accept, store, and track resume submissions and job applications, and where people were in the hiring process. They started as PC-based, then migrated to web-based as apps evolved, and they were really quite benign to begin with. I have an applicant tracking system that I store my resumes in. When you send me a resume, you go into my ATS. And for years, they were a benevolent tool. I could track where you were in the hiring process. I could find you. They were great, except the growth of mobile changed everything. Suddenly, applicants could upload their resume to a site like Indeed or Monster, and if they see a keyword, they could go apply, 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 apply. In fact, so many resumes just simply were not qualified. It's not even you have to be in the top 10%. You just have to be in the ballpark. The problem is we'll post a job that's saying must have 5 years experience creating developer docs, and I get people who are ditch diggers, right? So really, companies had to, out of their own survival, wade through hundreds of resumes, most of whom were not qualified, right? So to counter that flood of non-qualified people, they started using AI or artificial intelligence to their ATSs to weed out the non-qualified candidates. And that worked in the beginning until, as, oh, I forgot somebody who said that earlier, they're also now weeding out perfectly qualified people, right? So now you also have websites like Indeed or ZipRecruiter that you can set up a little app saying, oh, anytime you see a technical writer job, submit me automatically. So now you have AIs submitting you for jobs and having AIs automatically rejecting you. It's like Rise of the Machine madness.
Yeah.
I'm swear to God. All right. So
Yep.
not only in the beginning, ATSs used to just compare your resume to the job requirements, and it ranked how well it thought, and I use thought with air quotes, you match the job description, and only X% were seen by real people. But it got even worse than that. It then now is starting to compare your resume to the job description. So it's not enough just to show that you match what they're looking for. You also have to show that you match what you'll be doing in the next job. So what's a job applicant to do? First, stop applying for jobs through applicant tracking systems, right? And if you actually absolutely have to, learn how to beat the ATS. So the next thing we're going to talk about now is how to just avoid ATSs altogether. Yeah, Joy was saying one of the first developers hard-coded the word objective into the required keywords. Yeah, madness. All right. So the best way to beat an applicant tracking system is to not use one at all. It's a million times more effective to apply for a job using a personal connection in your network. So start building your network now before you need it. Your STC connections are your most valuable asset in job hunting. I can't tell you how many people I know got jobs because they announced that they were unemployed and someone says, oh, we're hiring over here, and they got a job. Now, true fact, I know at least 5 people in the past year who got new jobs through their STC connections, yet did not get one single interview by applying through jobs through company websites. All right. Empirical data, stop applying through jobs through applicant tracking systems. Now, tip, right? We talked about volunteering earlier. Volunteering at the chapter or special interest group level is a great way to build your network. And I don't know why that moved, but we're going to go back. All right. Even better, speak at the STC Summit, write for Intercom, which is the STC magazine, right? Or even better, nominating committee, run for an office or volunteer at the society level. Look how many people you get exposure to. Now, Liz Poland is now the STC CEO. She used to be the editor of Intercom magazine years ago. And I had a column in Intercom for years on job hunting, and I usually got a cover article or another article or two over the years. And guess how I got my column? I said, hey, Liz, can I have a column? She went, sure. What do you want to write on? I said, how about job hunting tips? She goes, sure. See how difficult that is, right? Or Scott Abel and I wrote about tech writing in the age of 2.0 and other technologies. And now you're being visible, right? The best way to apply for a job is for someone to ask you to come work for them, not for you to say, hey, please give me a job. So the more visible you are in a positive light, I'm not talking about beer bonging in Mexico during spring break, but the more visible you can be, the better your chances of landing a job by someone coming to you instead of you applying for that job. Give you an example. I mean, I look on LinkedIn, I search the internet, and this can work for you or against you. I had a job opening once for a documentation manager or tech writer, and I knew this manager was looking for someone who's very forward-looking. They wanted someone on the leading edge of documentation development, and someone applied for the job So I did an internet search on Google for her name and got 0 hits. And I'm going, how can you be a thought leader in your industry and have 0 hits on the internet? Not an article, not a speaking, not a membership in an STC chapter. Now, someone did say, well, maybe she recently got married and changed her name. True, I didn't think of that at the time, but many people these days, knowing they're building their social network, will hyphenate their last names. I would still be able to find you. So the trick and tip on this slide is to be visible. Make it easy to find you. And there's something in the chat that I can read, I discovered. Even if you have a connection, doesn't your resume still get put in the pile with everyone else's? Good question. No. There is a phenomenon where someone who gets a personal referral will get the hiring manager's attention because they don't get many personal referrals. They may get hundreds of resumes off the internet, but 1 or 2 from a personal referral. So the first place they're going to look is someone who already knows you, right? But that is only hiring through personal referrals can negatively impact diversity. Unless you have a diverse group of friends and associates, a lot of people hire people just like themselves. So we have to balance diversity from likeness. All right. Now, let me see if I cover this. Okay. So another place that you can do is what we're doing here. We're at a meetup, whether it's virtual or in person. You can connect with each other on LinkedIn. I got my LinkedIn link at the end of this presentation. Please connect with me. All right. Then join and contribute to groups in your industry on LinkedIn, Facebook, and other places. For example, I happen to own the content strategy group on LinkedIn that currently has over 40,000 members worldwide. So that's the first place I post jobs. I'm also a member of the documentation managers group on LinkedIn, the documentation manager and chief content officer groups on Facebook. These are places where if I see you are a regular contributor, that's the first person I'm going to call. Well, not the first person, second person. The first person I'm going to call are the people I know through the STC. Documentation manager in Milwaukee, Molly Barrett. Technical writer in Riverside, Sharon Burton. Right. So by being active in the STC, you're going to make those connections and be memorable. All right. All right. More chat questions. Personal referrals are strong endorsements, doubling the number of people with skin in the game. The person referring who loses face if the newcomer fails, and the would-be employee who doesn't want to disappoint. That is true. That is absolutely true. Now, keep in mind too that I know I have a friend of mine, documentation manager, and somebody applied for a job, brought them in for an interview, and the sample document they showed as a writing sample was the document that the manager herself wrote at her previous job. Right. So hopefully, if you get a personal referral, that adds a little bit of credibility that you're not going to be a bum off the street and misrepresent yourself, because then you, again, as somebody said, you both look bad. All right. That said, and I'm going to go back to the slides for a second. One, a majority of jobs are not posted on the web because they know if they post it, they're going to get hundreds of non-qualified applicants. So companies will ask, you know, do you know anybody who's looking? Do you know anybody that you've worked with that you can recommend? That's another way to find a job. And again, they're finding you, you're not applying for the job through their website. Plus, many companies offer bonuses to their employees for finding someone. It's cheaper than waiting through those hundreds of qualified, non-qualified resumes or posting the job on various paid websites. So don't hesitate to ask someone to pass your resume on to a hiring manager. In fact, I would go as far as to say you want to apply for a job at, say, John Deere Tractor. Go see if you know anybody at John Deere Tractor. If not, find another tech writer who's already at John Deere Tractor and go, hi, I see there's an opening in your department. If I send you my resume, would you mind passing it on to the manager? Most of the time they'll say yes, because most of the time they'll find a bonus for finding you. So now is not the time to be shy and say, oh, I wouldn't want someone to do that. Now that person might say, hey, I don't know this person personally, but they reached out to me. That's a fair disclaimer. It's not like you're saying we're best buddies, but again, you are avoiding that applicant tracking system. Worst case scenario, reach out to a recruiter on LinkedIn at that company and say, hey, I see there's an opening for a tech writer. May I send you my resume? Now they'll say one of like several things. One, they'll ignore you. Two, but it's their job to find you. So they'll probably say, yes, absolutely. Email me your resume at, or they'll say, you know what, apply for the job via our website, but I'll keep an eye open for your resume. So even if it does get misrouted and rejected by the ATS, somebody's there who can fish you out of the deleted pile. All right. Either way, you're going for a personal connection. One of the things to be aware of is the companies that don't have a real job. Yes. Okay. I know plenty of two parts to this comment. I know plenty of recruiters who will post a job opening just to get resumes in where there's really no job there. The opposite side of that is we had a client once who had a job opening for whatever, and we found this perfect person, had every box, was in the salary range, was in the local range. We submitted them, and then they went radio silent and ghosted me. The only explanation I can think of is that they already knew who they wanted to hire, but they probably had some sort of corporate policy saying you must look at X number of resumes before you bring somebody in. So I really felt used, just like I could feel used by me sending somebody a resume and then never hearing from them either. What's even worse is when you apply for a job and you don't hear anything back. At least I, as a recruiter, will say, thank you for your resume. The job has already been filled. I just haven't taken it down yet. Or they really want somebody with a degree in computer engineering. I'm sorry, that is a requirement. If I have any other job, I will keep you in mind in my database so I can find you for another job. So at least I try to give that reinforcement. That said, legally, we are, if you go for interview and are not, if you go in an interview and you don't get the job, many companies are legally not able to tell you why, because it opens the job to wrongful, oh, Andrew, help me out here. What's the term? It's when they think that you should have gotten the job and you didn't, and you feel cheated, or it's because of diversity or something. So just keep in mind that we can't always give you feedback. All right. Okay, and this is probably from Joy. One of my sneaky tricks was wedding announcements. Someone who just spent most or all of their savings on a ring, a honeymoon, might be happy to get that referral fee if you can convince them that you're credible. Oh, that's bad. I thought you were going to say that, you know, they won't move because they just got married and are local. All right. Yeah. Risk aversion. Yeah, Andrew, thank you. All right, let's press on. And we talked about this better. And oh, even better, if the hiring manager is on LinkedIn, reach out to them directly. Because like somebody said that there's a sole tech writer, or maybe there's like one documentation manager in the whole company. That would not work at like Lockheed Martin, where there are hundreds of tech documentation managers, but that would work for a smaller company. And again, they're trying to fill this position. They're trying to find you. Make it as easy as possible for them to find you. Interesting enough, companies rarely list their HR or recruiting contacts on their website to avoid spam, but 99.99999% all have recruiters have LinkedIn accounts because they use it to recruit. So even if you can't find somebody at the company, and you can't find a tech writer at the company, and you can't find the documentation manager, you can always find a recruiter. And always be polite and ask permission. Don't go spam, spam, spam. I would reach out to that person and say, hi, I see you have a tech writing opening. I'm a tech writer with 20 years experience. May I send you my resume? Right? So keep in your manners and etiquette. And we talked about this already. Okay, good. For the last option, and that's, someone says, no, but go ahead and apply via our website and I'll keep an eye open for you. You're still applying for a job via the ATS, but at least you'll, again, have a human looking out for your resume in case you do get weeded out by the ATS. Yeah, as Andrew said, they're scared of getting sued for considering illegal criteria. Yep, so I agree. Okay, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's so important, I want to reinforce it. Another option is to be so visible as an expert that people want to hire you. You're not asking them for a job, they're asking you. What better position to be in for negotiating a salary and perks and anything else if someone really wants you, right? So again, speak at conferences, write articles, start a blog, post on social media. I had someone interview me for a video blog last week, and that's going to go live sometime next month. And here's a hint. I like to practice what I preach. Granted, there's not a lot of Jack Molisanis out in the world, but if you Google search my name, and by the way, you know what it's called when you Google search yourself? It's called ego surfing. But I always want to know what people are saying about me. But if you Google search my name, there's something like 10,000 hits, just because I've spoken so many places and I've written so many articles and I volunteered in so many chapters. You cannot not find me if you're trying to find me. All right. So be visible. All right. Now that we've discussed how to avoid applying for jobs by ATSs, let's look at how to get past them if you absolutely must. So I'm going to pause here for questions, because how to get past the ATS is a completely different topic than avoiding them altogether. Joy, you had any other sneaky tips other than finding someone who's desperate to pay off their wedding ring?
Yeah, when I first started having voicemail in companies, I would tell people if they wanted to go to work for a big company to call on the weekend, either really early in the morning or late at night, just so somebody wasn't there working on a project, and get into the voicemail system where they would ask you to enter the first few letters of someone's last name.
Yes.
And you enter the first few letters of any common name. And when you get that person's voicemail, you pitch yourself to them.
And then add, I'm sorry, if you're not the right person, can you forward this to the person who is?
The other thing is to get past gatekeepers, call and you ask for the accounting department. We use this when our startups in the Clean Tech Open are doing customer discovery. You ask for the accounting department. They're never going to turn away a call, especially if it's accounts receivable.
Oh, I was going to say that. Yes, definitely accounts receivable. And you go, then, I'm sorry, I was trying to reach marketing. Can you transfer me?
Oh, you don't even say that. You just start talking and they say, oh, I'm sorry, they transferred you to the wrong department. Let me transfer you.
Even better. So here's a true story. When I was working in Orange County many moons ago, I picked out all the companies I'd want to work for in my next contract. I was a contractor at the time. And I called all the documentation managers and said, hi, I'm with Orange County STC. I'm writing an article on trends in hiring and TechCom. May I interview you? Everybody said yes, right? So I asked them, so tell me about what you do. Okay, good. So what are you going to be hiring this year? Contract or perm? Okay, good. What do you look for in a technical writer? Wrote that down too. And then at the end of the interview said, by the way, would you like me to send you a copy of the article once it comes out? Oh, what's your email address? I now had all the email addresses of all the hiring managers in Orange County. I knew what they were hiring for, when they were hiring for, and what they were looking for. I did write the article and I did follow up, but I also said, by the way, my contract is ending soon. May I send you my resume? Everyone said yes. Tell you what, at the time, I was never out of work, right? So this is where, again, this is a perfect way to avoid an ATS, is by being creative in your job search and not being a quiet introvert, but reaching out to people, write an article for, a blog or interview people, anything to make that personal connection and avoid the ATS altogether.
Hey, Jack, I was in a job seeker meeting this week, and a woman talked about hand delivering a resume to the company itself. And I thought that was so old school, it almost makes you laugh. But I don't know, do people actually still do that? Is it still a good thing?
God, COVID changed everything. That may have worked. I don't know if it works now. And especially since 90% of the workforce is still remote, how would they get a physical resume that you dropped off? So I would not advise that. However, there's always an exception. And one of my favorite stories about job hunting is a friend of mine in New Orleans was the head of creative at a design agency. And there was an opening in New Orleans. There was an opening at the New Orleans Opera for a creative director. So my friend Dale, you know the Helga horns that opera singers wear with the helm and the pigtails? He got a Helga helm, wrote his resume on the helmet, mailed it to the opera, and got the job. Because they were looking for a creative director. How much more creative can you get? That would not work for a bank, but it sure as heck worked for the New Orleans Opera, right? So this is where, if you're going to leverage your tech writing skills, do it, again, maybe in a blog instead of a Helga helm. So I don't know about delivering a resume in person. What do you have to lose? They're not hiring you. What are they going to do? Not hire you more? Try it. Little thing called usability testing and A/B testing. It's like going to the optometrist. Is it better this way or this way? Right? Try it. ATS isn't working. What do you have to lose? Try dropping off a physical resume and see if you get a response. Well, then let the rest of the group know how that worked. We're tribal knowledge here. Good question. Any other questions? Just speak up. Pausing for effect. Chat. Okay. Mail, hand addressed, large envelope. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would mail it, not drop it off in person. So yeah. Yeah, I would advise against hand delivering it as well. Okay, let's move on. There are actually many websites and books on how to beat the ATSs. Many, 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 many. I am not an expert in this field. I'm just sharing some tips that I've learned along the way. There's a recommended reading for the STC Journal. I volunteered to review a book that the president of ZipRecruiter wrote. And it's all about applying for jobs online, which I am personally morally against, because I just spent the last half hour telling you not to do that. But if you're applying for a job through ZipRecruiter, that might be a good book to read. I'll just give you some main points here, and then you can drill down deeper as we go. Okay. In a previous session, I assert that a resume is just a vehicle that shows that you match what the reader's looking for, or for what the reader's looking for you grammarians, right? This is especially true when the reader, air quotes, is an AI in an applicant tracking system. So the main strategy for getting past the ATS is make your resume look as much as possible like the job posting. Your title at the top of your resume and in your current and previous jobs must match the job posting exactly. If they are looking for an information engineer, by golly, put tech writer / information engineer. You know, objective, information engineer in, or summary, 10+ years experience as an information engineer. Right? Now, true story. If you do a search for, is my resume applicant tracking system friendly or ATS friendly? There are websites where you can post the job posting and post your resume, and it will tell you how well it thinks the other company will think you match the job posting. ZipRecruiter has one. There are many. So a friend of mine is UI stands for user interface, UX stands for user experience. She was a UI UX designer applying for a UI UX design position and kept being rejected by their ATS until she realized that it was UI UX designer, but her title was UX UI designer. And that simple transposition of those two letters was enough to get her kicked off because she didn't match what they were looking for, right? You are writing for a very artificial intelligence oxymoron. They're totally dumb, right? So when I say it must match exactly, it must match exactly. All right. Yeah, again, use their exact wording. Now, the AI also compare the job duties to your resume. So make sure your resume also shows what you've done using the words in the job description. Again, using their exact wording. So again, if you just search for, is my resume ATS friendly, find one of these websites, post the job description, post your resume, and this is where you can tweak your ATS version of your resume to see how, and get as highly ranked as you can. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of ZipRecruiter, but they have such an evaluation tool, which is probably really good if you're applying for a job through their website, right? I'm just saying, you know, work the system. Now, some guidelines about ATSs. They don't visually see a resume, right? So if you've got your phone number as an icon, as a graphic, they can't read it. I've heard it said that ATSs can't read the headers in a Word file. So you need to pull your contact information out of the header and put it in the body of the resume. Similarly, what to do if you haven't done exactly what they're asking for, but you've done something similar, figure out a way to work that into your resume. So say they want Madcap Flare, but you've only used RoboHelp, you could say 5 years experience with RoboHelp similar to Madcap Flare. Especially if we're doing a Google search or a resume search and trying to find tech writer, Madcap Flare, San Diego, at least you'll come up. At least the ATS will see that keyword in your resume. I'm not saying lie, tell an acceptable truth. Oh, good point from Andrew, is make the job titles in your resume variables. And that way you can change the variable and output to PDF so it always matches. I like that. Okay, good. Okay, now ATSs cannot parse long sentences, so use short phrases. Keep the verb and the object in close proximity. For example, wrote training materials, not wrote a variety of content for end users and stakeholders, including installation guide, user manuals, standard operating procedures, and training materials. That ATS would never parse that. You would never get an interview, right? So the author of the ZipRecruiter book says, talk like a caveman. Again, sexist, but wrote manuals, ugh. All right. ATSs can't parse tables, embedded text boxes, icons and graphics, headers and footers. Remember when we used to write our resumes in Notepad because they wanted a text file? We're back to those days again. All right. So I'm going to ask this of the group. If you're say you're doing your resume in Notepad. How can you format a heading so it looks like a heading? All right, I'm not the only old
That's
person
easy.
here.
The old people used to do those things all the time.
And what did we do?
Oh, I don't know. We'd underline, we'd use caps, we would
All
put
caps. Yep.
asterisks around.
Ding, 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 ding. Yep, absolutely. We have come full circle, my friend. We are back to the days of writing our resume in Notepad. Again, plain as possible. No flowery indents. How do you do a bulleted list in Notepad? Anybody?
With asterisks.
Or little o period, space.
Yeah,
Right?
that works.
It's, yep. An ATS can't read bulleted lists. So you need to visually set something off.
Jack, what if you used a control key sequence to create a bullet in Notepad? That's what I used to do back in the old days when I would format the job list for STC San Diego 20 years ago.
Right?
Will the ATS be able to read an alt-coded bullet?
Truthfully, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe between now and our next the follow-up meeting, do a test run, and one of those is my resume ATS friendly, and report back on that experiment.
Of course, there's nothing to prevent them from getting better.
True, but again, I mean, there may be really I listen to NPR radio, and people C3 says new AI solving previously unsolvable business problems, and then they drop business and just saying previously unsolvable problems. So I'm guessing that someday these ATS is going to be better than they are now. The problem is there's no return on investment for them spending a lot of money on an ATS. As one of the job posters in the group said, and forgive me because I'm horrible with names, said that they just want to disqualify 80% of the job applicants and just bring in that top X%. And boom, it does its job in their eyes.
But someday the shoe may be on the other foot, and there may be fewer applicants than there are jobs.
Correct. But it doesn't matter because we're not applying for jobs through ATSs, remember? All right, so you still want that gorgeously formatted and beautifully written resume to bring to an interview after you've beaten the ATS. I've also seen ATSs where they want you to paste your resume into a window, but you can also attach a formatted resume, best of both worlds. This is where you having two versions of your resume that I mentioned earlier comes in. The very simple one for the ATS and the one formatted for human consumption. All right. Resume and PDF or Notepad, it really depends. You just see what does the ATS ask for. So one of the reasons why you want to send a PDF is if you're using Microsoft Word, Word has a lot of metadata about you, about the document, who wrote the document, when it was printed, what template you used, how long you've been editing it, and creating a PDF strips all that personal information and all that metadata out. If you're going through an agency, Andrew might ask for a Word doc so he can put his submitted by in the header and hopefully not screw up your formatting like I've seen those of us who understand tech writing don't do that, but I've gotten resumes from other agency where they drop their big old header in and throws off the pagination, and I said, no way, this is not how this writer wrote his or her resume. But again, sending it, yes, PDF. Oh, Andrew brings up a good point. All right, so I too like a Word resume because the first thing I do is turn on hidden characters. And and I swear to God, I've gotten resumes from tech writers that they create the date ranges on the right margin by going tab, 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 space, 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 space. Oh my God, horrible, right? They don't, the whole Word resume, the whole resume is in normal, no headings, right? So yeah, your resume says a lot about you. someone who says they're an expert in Word and everything's in normal. Even worse is someone who says they're an editor with typos in their resume. No, you're not an editor. All right. Let's see. Let me see anything else here. Okay, good. So let's press on. All right. So those are the main points to follow. Again, there's plenty of books out there on how to beat the ATS. The point of my presentation is to avoid the ATS altogether, but this is a good place to start. So let's open the floor to questions and war stories. Joy, do you have any more sneaky tips that you used to do? Please share them.
Well, one that's not so sneaky, when you were talking about networking, I always tell people to volunteer in 2 groups and that they have to participate. One is in a group like FTC, if they're a writer or editor. The other is in the field that they want to work in, where they're like the only writer that anybody knows.
Tell you what, I absolutely agree with you. We're going to riff on that in a second. I'm going to show my next slide that's got my contact information, and then I'm going to go off screen sharing so we can talk face to face again. ATSs compare your resume to both the job requirements and the job description, and you'll be rejected if it's not a good match. Stop applying for jobs through ATSs. And all else fails, then format and beat the ATS at its own game. So 2 books that I can recommend. Pamela Patterson wrote Optimize Your Resume for the Online Job Search, called Get the Job. And then the guy who started ZipRecruiter has a very excellent section on beating the ATS. So connect with me on LinkedIn. You got my email address here. I will post it in the chat window at the end. At this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can go back in gallery mode and I can read the chat window. There we go. All right. So Joy, did you have any other sneaky things you used to do other than calling people's voicemail at night?
Well, the volunteering, I had people who got jobs in the most interesting ways. One fellow answered the door in his bathrobe because he had just been fired, and it was the newsboy collecting for the newspaper when they used to do that. And he said, "Oh, Mr. Molisani, why are you home?" And he said, "Well, I just lost my job." And the kid went home and told his father that Mr. Molisani lost his job, and the father knew what Mr. Molisani did because they were in the neighborhood and needed someone just like him. He was hired that day in his bathroom interviewing with a kid. So you never know.
I wouldn't necessarily show up in my robe to the paper boy, but you never know. And I used to be a paper boy, and I used to collect money. I know exactly what that means.
One fellow got his job because he was filling boxes at a food bank next to somebody, and that person needed it. I think the best story ever was a guy who was contacted by a company in New England, and he was really honest with them. He said, "My whole family's in the Bay Area. You know, I've got kids who are in school. We don't want to leave the Bay Area." And they said, "Well, we think you'll love our company so much that we're going to pay for you and your wife to come out, stay for a couple days, meet our people, and just see if you like us." So they did that, knowing that he really didn't want to leave the Bay Area. And when he got there, everything was so nice. And he said, "But, you know, my family just doesn't want to leave the Bay Area." And the guy said, "All right." And he picked up his phone and he made a phone call. And he said, "I guess he's yours." And it was his son who was hiring for the same type of job in the Bay Area.
Nice.
I had a girl come. I was looking for a part-time assistant to do filing, and was kind of looking for a student to do something like that. But I had this woman come in. She looked like she could have been a cover girl for Ebony magazine, but she was wearing this hideous trench coat that looked filthy. And as soon as she came into my office, she took it off, and she really looked like a cover girl. Well, There was no way I was going to hire her. She was a law student trying to find some kind of work to help her get through school. And I called my soon-to-be ex-husband, who worked around the corner for a CPA firm as a partner, and I said, I just found your new receptionist.
Ah,
He hired her on the spot.
yeah. Bonnie Graham used to do a session called Management by Personality Flaw. If someone's chatty, make them a receptionist. If they're anal retentive, make them an editor. Getting back to someone who just said to network in two places, both the STC and the field that you want to work in. I used to go to C++ users group meetings. I used to go to, at the day, Visual Basic user group meetings and hand out my card, say, hi, I'm a technical writer. Hi, I'm a technical writer. And a lot of these, mostly men at the time, a lot of the guys were literally guys in a garage writing their own applications. And they didn't meet me then, but a year later, they said, oh, I'm getting ready to ship my product. I need a user manual. And they would call me a year later. So, ooh, I'm going to put this in the chat window. Shelly.com. Shelly Campbell wrote a book called The Wealthy Spirit. And in The Wealthy Spirit, one of her 5 ways to financial stress reduction. Have you heard the phrase, when my ship comes in? Anybody knows where that phrase comes from? Back after they discovered the New World, these merchants in London would mortgage everything they had to build a ship, outfit it with a crew, and send it off to the New World. When it came back, if it came back, because there were mutinies and whirlpools and sandbars, with furs and rum and spices, they would be rich beyond their imagination. The problem is, back then there was no ship-to-shore radio. There was no way of maintaining contact with the ship. They would send the ship, and they were literally waiting for their ship to come in, right?
That's the story of the Merchant of Venice.
Yep. See, the problem is, I know a lot of people are waiting for their ship to come in, but they're not sending any out. You have to send out ships for your ship to come in, right? So Shelley talks about keeping a ship's log. Write down where every time you write an article, every time you post a blog post, every time you speak at a conference, you're sending out a ship. Every time you hand out a business card, you're sending out a ship, right? As a recruiter, I know that when I need jobs to fill, on average, it takes me about 30 calls to either new or existing clients to get a job in, right? So when I call someone and say, hey, do you have a job you need help filling? And they go, no, I go, great. I only need 29 more no's. I need 29 no's because I know on average the 30th is going to be a yes, right? Takes all the sting out of someone telling me no. I go, great, thank you. I needed that no. Same thing with
It's not how
interviewing.
probability works, Jack.
Doesn't matter. I'm telling you, this is how it works in Jack world. There's the mind over matter thing. I know. Listen, I've had weeks where I made 1 call and got 5 jobs in. There are times I've made 50 calls or emails, right? Or I've gone to a trade show and gone from booth to booth to booth to booth saying, do you need help hiring somebody? So, but on average, if you keep a ship's log, you'll know how visible do you have to be. Again, it's just another tool in your job hunting toolbox.
On the theme of going to meetups that are not just tech writer meetups, so it's both things that you know about and things that you want to know about. So if you're in software, you go to programming meetups. If you work well in an agile environment, go to the agile meetups. Or if you want to learn web development, go to the web development meetups. So
or virtual reality meetup.
Or
Whatever.
AI, machine learning, whatever, and you will probably be the one tech writer that those people know.
That's right. There's a whole lot of fields out there in which writers are absolutely unknown. So, and they need them.
Yep. So here's another, it's a little off topic, but still valuable, is get a certificate in whatever field you want to work in, right? So assuming you're already a tech writer and you want to get into, say, network administration, well, go take a network administration class, right? Or take a programming class. And one of the things I tell people is like, my degree happens to be in computer engineering, but anybody can take a programming class, especially online. And if they say, can you document, Visual Basic? I go, document Visual Basic. Oh, I can write Visual Basic code, right? And again, if I see two tech writers and one of them has a certificate or a degree in that field, I'm going to go for that person who's got the domain knowledge. So another way to be visible is to have visibility in that industry.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, I think this has been a great talk tonight. I really like these ideas about getting around the ATS, but I do want to confess that I'm a current job seeker, and I'm curious what you have to say about this, like the way I've been doing it. So basically, I feel like I'm pandering really, because when you go to a job description, there's going to be soft skills in it that usually you don't put onto your resume, but they're going to need to be on your resume in order to get a really high match. And then also they just have random phrasing sometimes. Like I did one job where they kept repeating the word new hire orientation 8 times. And so to get the match, I had to find ways to stick it in there. And of course, like you're saying, the phrasing needs to be exact or you're not going to be getting the matches through the ATS. Right. And I really ended up with a weird sounding resume. That's not something I would have written with any sort of pride. And like that's where I am right now, is I'm in this pandered sort. I feel like almost slimy after doing the resume. If you want to hit like 85 or 90%, it's silly how much you have to rewrite the job description as your resume. But when you think about all that stuff, I'm just curious.
John, stop applying for jobs through ATSs. You'll never have this problem ever again. Right? Yeah. Again, go through a recruiter. Right? Andrew can pitch you to his clients. I can pitch you to my clients. I actually, okay. Again, this is a true story, is that there's another technical writing company out there that has a group on LinkedIn called Technical Writing Jobs, but they won't let anybody else post there. That's only for their jobs. So I have all these jobs that require DITA right now. So I started DITA Jobs on LinkedIn, a group called DITA Jobs, and it happened to be available. So I snagged ditajobs.com. So I'm creating my own environment where I can post my job so people can find me. So I try to practice what I preach. I want to be visible. I want my jobs to be visible. And I want to find people who are visible. Right? So the first thing, John, you need to do is write an article and maybe recap this meeting that the San Francisco Bay chapter can post on their website. So when someone searches for someone, your name comes up.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate what you're saying.
I'll just say that on this thing about visibility, years ago, I went to my first STC meeting. I'd had a little bit of experience doing, newsletter work before, and I blurted that out, and I wound up leaving the meeting as the next editor of the newsletter. But, but anyway, what I wanted to say was that I broke into the whole field of tech writing by writing recaps of STC meetings. And somebody'd ask me if I knew something about something. I'd say I wrote an article on that, and I'd show it. And the article would be a summary of what one of the speakers said, but that was enough to get you in.
I want to and what Patrick just.
Yourself a thought leader.
I'm sorry, Joy. I spoke over you. Say that again.
He made himself a thought leader.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add 2 things to what Patrick said. I'm agreeing with both Joy and Patrick. One, in Orange County STC, there was a environmental engineer wanted to transition to tech writer, Teresa Vigianis. So she volunteered to be the Orange County STC newsletter editor, and we would post them online. And someone liked the newsletter so much they offered her a job because her contact information for the newsletter was in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So that is an excellent example of volunteering will help you find a job. Now, what Joy was saying about is establishing yourself as an expert. Remember when we used to have online help, back in the Windows 3.1 days and the Windows 95 days. And the online help was changing so much, you had to go to conferences just to keep up. Well, Joe Walensky had Win Writers. And at one of the Win Writers, this is like 20 years ago now, they had a panel discussion where the panelists would decompile. Okay, the worst online help in the history of mankind is the WinZip online help. The engineer just kept adding topics. There was no organization, nothing. Yeah. So the panelists were going to decompile that online help, fix it, recompile it, and then we're going to show the before and after. So the panelists were Joe Walensky, who wrote the book on online help and had the conference on online help, Scott Bugan, who co-wrote the book on online help, Don Stevens, who now owns CIDM Best Practices Conference. So I said, hey, Joe, can I be on that panel? He said, sure. So nobody knows me from Adam, right? But I was a good tech writer. I was a good online help writer. So I too decompiled the Win help, fixed it, and then I showed what I changed. But here I am on the same stage as Scott Bugan, Joe Walensky, Don Stevens, and me, right? Yeah. And then I took that page from the proceedings and put that in my portfolio. Look, me and Joe, same stage. I positioned myself as an expert in my field. Yeah. I was visible. I really do practice what I preach. End of soapbox.
I actually, at one of my APICS meetings, that was the American Production and Inventory Control Society, because I love manufacturing. At one of the meetings, we had a guest, and he was from the Institute for Industrial Engineers. Mm-hmm. And he heard me say that I was a writer and a Toastmaster. And he said, we really need someone to teach a 2-day course in communication. I said, I could do that. And he said, well, send us a proposal. So I sent the proposal, and then some airplanes flew into buildings in New York. Yep. And their whole conference got canceled. But I still have the conference brochure.
Right.
With my work in it.
Right. Now,
Jack, here, is this look familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. They wrote the book.
They wrote the book.
Now, even though I was kidding about writing my own VB code, I applied for a contract once, and one of the things they wanted was experience doing conditional text in FrameMaker variables. Like, for example, the Mazda 626 and the Ford Probe were the exact same car. So if you just put model name as a variable, you can say model name equals Mazda 626, print the manual. I'd never done conditional text with FrameMaker. So I got a copy of FrameMaker and I taught myself it. And then I made an announcement going, does anybody in the chapter want to learn conditional text? Bring your laptop, meet me at Starbucks on Saturday. And then I applied for the job. And in the interview, they said, can you do conditional text with FrameMaker? I literally said, do conditional text. I've taught people conditional text. Now, I can get away with a shared impersonation in an interview. You may not, right? But I have the personality that can pull that off. So again, your mileage may vary, but again, it's an example of me being proactive, looking, what's the first law of tech writing? Know thy audience, know what they're looking for. A resume is just a vehicle that shows that you match what they're looking for. So I made sure I matched what they were looking for. Again, hard to do through an ATS, John. I realize that, but we're really emphasizing personal relationships and finding a job other than through an ATS tonight.
Well, I always tell people that the resume is a marketing document and the interview is the sales call.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I had a boss who said, when we were going to be interviewing candidates for a job, he said, there's only 2 things you need to know. Can they do the job, and can you stand them while they do it?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I'm going to quote you on that in a future presentation.
All right, Jack, I'm going to stop the recording, but we can keep talking forever. But I'm going to stop the recording now.